Okay, let's start. Hopefully we'll give. Hello and welcome. It's just after 5:30 p.m. in New Delhi, 2 in the afternoon in Johannesburg and 9 in the morning in Brasilia. And you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. We're interrupting our regular programming to bring you our coverage of the G20 Summit in South Africa. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and with me is my colleague Shubhendu Ghosh.
Thank you, Ramesh. Johannesburg is hosting this year's G20 Summit over the next couple of days on 22nd and 23rd November. Interestingly, it's the first time ever that a G20 Summit is taking place on the African continent, Ramesh. It is also the fourth consecutive time that the host of G20 Summit is from the Global South. Indonesia in 2022, India in 2023, Brazil in 24 and South Africa this year.
Indeed. Now, solidarity, equality and sustainability is the theme of this year's summit. Prime Minister Modi of India will join other world leaders for discussions on global challenges, sustainable economic growth, development and financing. A notable exception is US President Donald Trump. He's boycotting the summit because, for one, he thinks that the summit's focus on diversity, inclusion and climate change smacks of anti-Americanism, because these terms, diversity, inclusion and climate change, are code for anything woke in President Trump's book.
It'll be interesting to find out the implications of that, Ramesh, in the course of the program. The next couple of hours, we'll be joined by our correspondent from Johannesburg, South Africa. Also joining us will be guests to put the summit in its proper perspective for you. A quick word about the G20 before we move on. It includes the world's major economies representing 85% of global GDP, 75% of international trade, and two-thirds of the world's population. The G20 comprises 19 countries, 2 organizations, European Union, latest African Union. The African Union joined the G20 at the G20 Summit hosted by India in the year 2023.
Now, Prime Minister Modi will attend the 20th G20 Leaders Summit hosted by South Africa. Now, this will be the 4th consecutive G20 summit held in the Global South. Before his departure, Prime Minister Modi issued a statement.
And Prime Minister said that he's visiting the Republic of South Africa from 21st to 23rd of November at the invitation of President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa to attend the 20th G20 Leaders Summit being held in Johannesburg under South Africa's presidency. This will be a particularly special summit given that it would be the first G20 summit being held in Africa. During India's presidency of G20 in 2023, the African Union had become the member of the G20.
Indeed, the summit now will be an opportunity to discuss key global issues. The theme, as I said before, of this year's G20 summit has been solidarity, equality and sustainability, by which South Africa has carried forward the outcomes from the previous summits held at New Delhi in India and Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. He said that he will present India's perspective at the summit in line with his government's vision of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and one earth, one family and one future.
Prime Minister said he looked forward to interacting with leaders of the partner countries. Participation also in the 6th IPSA summit scheduled on the sidelines of the summit, the G20. During the visit, Prime Minister also is going to interact with the Indian diaspora in South Africa, which happens to be one of the largest outside of India. And preparations are complete for the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. The summit, scheduled to be held on 22nd and 23rd November, will discuss issues such as development, climate crisis, global economic imbalances. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend the G20 Summit in Johannesburg.
सबका साथ की भावना से ही भारत ने प्रस्ताव रखा था कि अफ्रीकन यूनियन को G20 की स्थायी सदस्यता दी जाए। मेरा विश्वास है कि इस प्रस्ताव पर हम सबकी सहमति है।
The African Union was admitted as a member at the G20 summit chaired by India in 2023. This is the first time the G20 summit is being held in an African country. Host country South Africa has stated its focus on strengthening an inclusive, just, and sustainable global architecture. Representatives from 42 countries and organizations are participating at various levels in this summit. It includes 20 of the 21 G20 members, 16 guest countries, and representatives from 6 regional and economic groups. The United States has declined to attend, so its seat will remain vacant. Currently, the G20 members are Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Turkey, the United Kingdom, the United States, the European Union, and the African Union. India placed the Global South at the center of the G20 summit held under its chairmanship. Following the same logic, this year's G20 summit has been divided into 3 major sessions, taking into account current circumstances. The first session will focus on issues such as inclusive and sustainable economic growth, trade, development, finance, and debt burden. The second session is on a resilient world, where they'll discuss disaster risk management, climate change, a just energy transition, and food systems. And the third session on a just future for all. That will include critical minerals, decent employment, and artificial intelligence. It is understood that the summit participants will present their proposals around these issues.
This is the first G20 summit that will be happening on African soil, and in that context will bring the spotlight on the development issues of Africa as also of the Global South.
Several reports will be presented to the leaders before the summit. There will be reports on global inequality, expert panels on Africa, and a review of the G20's 20th anniversary. In addition, several high-level meetings will be held: the Global Fund Replenishment Discussion, the Renewable Energy Pledge Forum, events related to the Compact with Africa, and a special session with the heads of African countries. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will meet several world leaders separately on this occasion. He'll also participate in the summit meeting of IPSA, or the India, Brazil, and South Africa.
On the margins of G20 Summit, PM will be participating in the IPSA, India, Brazil, South Africa leaders meeting, as well as holding bilateral meeting with several leaders who will be present in Johannesburg.
So far, 130 of the 133 G20 meetings have been held. The final phase is underway at the Sherpa level meeting, where efforts are being made to reach consensus on the leaders' declaration. The Global South is certainly being discussed prominently, with Africa in particular at the center. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, Prime Minister Modi will be in South Africa to attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg. In his interventions, he will present India's perspective at the forum in line with its vision of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and one earth, one family and one future. DD India's Amritpal Singh reports from Johannesburg.
As the 20th G20 summit kicks off here in Johannesburg on Saturday, it will be historic for more reasons than one. It will be the first ever G20 summit to be held on African soil. And that is more than just symbolic. Because G20, which is a grouping of the 20 most powerful or the largest economies of the world, was once driven by the agenda of the developed world. But that has now changed. India had a significant role to play in it during its presidency in 2023. And we could expect the agenda of the Global South to figure prominently over the next 2 days here at the Johannesburg Summit. And we could see that come out in the Johannesburg Declaration as it came out significantly in the New Delhi Declaration 2 years back. Also, Prime Minister Modi will be giving the message of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future, emphasizing the need for an inclusive, fair, balanced world order and looking at the priorities of those who are the have-nots of the world. With cameraman Mohit Joshi, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Johannesburg.
All eyes on Johannesburg for the G20 summit in an exclusive conversation with DD India's Amritpal Singh. India's High Commissioner to South Africa, Prabhat Kumar, spoke about the excitement amongst the Indian diaspora.
As Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives here in Johannesburg to participate in the G20 Summit, the Prime Minister will be engaging with world leaders apart from participating in the meeting of IBSA and the G20. What is expected to transpire here over the next 2 days? I have with me the Indian High Commissioner to South Africa, Ambassador Prabhat Kumar. Ambassador Prabhat Kumar, what could we expect in Prime Minister's intervention at the G20?
Honorable Prime Minister is here for the G20 Summit. There's a lot of excitement among the Indian diaspora and also in the government of South Africa and generally, because Prime Minister is one of the tallest leader. He is attending his 12th G20 Summit. And the issues, of course, are of the Global South, which Prime Minister will highlight, such as digital public infrastructure, disaster resilience, women empowerment, food security. These are artificial intelligence. These issues will be highlighted by Prime Minister in his interventions and interactions. And he is meeting the President of South Africa and many other global leaders.
India, during its presidency of the G20, Ambassador, pushed the agenda of the Global South, the South-South cooperation. That seems to be taking center stage here again at the Johannesburg Summit. Has India, in a way, redefined how G20's agenda, how the priorities of the G20 were before India's presidency and now following India's presidency?
Yes, if you will recall, we had the presidency in 2023, during which we held 2 Voice of Global South summits. Those were virtual summits in which more than 100 countries participated, and the feedback from that summit flowed into the actual G20 summit. So India defined the agenda of Global South that way. You will recall that African Union became a member of G20 during India's presidency, and thereafter, now the G20 is more broad-based, and almost it incorporates 80% of the world.
So clearly over the next 2 days, the world leaders of G20 shall be discussing issues that affect the world, conflicts that are marring the world, tensions related to trade that are existing in the world today. But clearly, India's left its footprint on the G20 agenda by putting the issues and priorities of the Global South at the heart of the global debate. Amrit Pal Singh with cameraman Mohit Joshi for DD India in Johannesburg.
All right, and joining us are Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia and Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey. Ambassador Bhatia is a former Indian High Commissioner to South Africa, is also a former envoy to Myanmar, Mexico and Kenya. He has authored books on Africa as well. And Professor Dubey is with the Center for African Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Gentlemen, welcome to this special broadcast. If I can start with you, Ambassador Bhatia, the first G20 summit ever on African soil and the 4th consecutive summit in the Global South. High on symbolism, no doubt, but will it be equally high on substance?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I also bring to you greetings of Gateway House, the think tank in Mumbai. To answer your question, I think it is both a matter of symbolism but also of substance. Symbolism because clearly Africa had to wait since 2008 to 2025 to be able to host the G20 first summit, but they are very happy and glad that finally it has arrived there and this completes the first cycle. Also because as has been repeatedly mentioned, we have a new member, the African Union. So this double-edged impact is indeed significant. When it comes to substance, I think as I wrote in one of my recent op-eds, this is a G20 summit with African characteristics. There is no doubt that there is a very significant focus on Africa's perspectives, on African challenges, and the way Africa's development is stymied by various political and economic problems. So effectively, what we can say is that since Africa is the heart of the global south, this largely is also a conference on the global south issues as well.
Indeed.
Right. Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey, if I can come to you, sir. When Prime Minister says that he's going to take forward India's vision of one earth, one family, one future, just to remind that that was also the theme of India's G20 presidency in the year 2023. What does it mean for the sense of continuity in India's leadership as far as issues of the global south are concerned?
In fact, in a summit that was organized at New Delhi, the global south was a major focus. And what Prime Minister is saying, that linkages between global south and global north, we cannot divide, but the global south was put on the agenda. When he's going to South Africa, when he's speaking there, he's carrying the same message that was conveyed very strongly in G20 forum, that the world cannot ignore global south, and the world is interconnected. And therefore, this is a continuity. Some of the issues that he raised in New Delhi summit, and the fact that the African Union was inducted here is also part of the summit at Johannesburg. So it is this is what he's saying, that this is a continuity of the last 4G summit, 3 G4 summit which took place in Global South, and this is the 4th one that is taking place over there. So there is a continuity of the expectations from the G20 and continuity of the assertion of Global South in G20.
Absolutely. Ambassador Bhatia, we've discussed about the optics of the summit. Let's talk about the likely outcomes from the summit. What will India be looking for from the summit?
So specifically, I think there is a feeling among the think tank community in India that while the global south's agenda has to be safeguarded and advanced, it has to be done in such a manner that the global north also stays with us, and therefore a kind of a approach where India and other countries serve as a bridge between the south and the north would be something that would be looked at. In terms of specific subjects, I think clearly climate finance for energy transition is a big issue, and the impact of what is happening at COP30 will determine that. So that is one issue. Then the second very important issue is about the debt challenges for the low and middle income groups, particularly those which are in Africa. I think South Africa, as the host and president of G20, is very keen on pushing this. And then thirdly, as your commentary earlier said, there is very special focus on the inequality in the global and national economies. There is a very interesting report that has been produced by the presidency. So we will have to see whether the central recommendation of that report, that is the establishment of an international panel on inequality, will be set up or not. And finally, if I may very quickly add, the review of G20 in the past 20 summits, how they need to re-engineer it and how they need to plan for the next 10 or 20 years, that would also be very much worth watching.
Right. Ambassador Bhatia, you referred to working together, coming together of the global south and the global north. That makes me wonder, President Donald Trump usually makes news by his presence, but this time his absence is going to make news. What does America's absence at the G20 mean for the grouping? Also, what's important is that America is going to be the next chair of the G20, so that that hammer, gavel is going to be passed on to America. How do you see it?
This is a very thoughtful question, and it is a question that provokes thinking and debate. It obviously is all about the global geopolitics today. Very rarely it happens that in a conference the focus is not so much on those who are present, but this time on those who are absent from it. And they have made it very clear that they are not just absent because they are not able to attend, they are boycotting it. And if they didn't use the word boycotting, the host country's president has said that the boycott politics does not work. So yes, this is a serious problem. I think it is a problem not just for those who are present, but also those who are absent because of the reason that you mentioned. US will be the next chair. Right now, as the latest media reports come in, there is a big controversy going on about whether there would be absolutely zero American officials there, or whether at least American CDA from the embassy in Pretoria would be present, because there is this very solid reason for the outgoing chair to hand over the gavel to somebody. It can't possibly be sent by email to Washington. So I would say that this is a matter of worry for both the South and the North. I think the unity of G20, the credibility and legitimacy of G20 is at stake, and we will have to see how the sagacity and the maturity of the international leadership manages to resolve it in the next 2 days.
Indeed. Professor Dubey, Ambassador Bhatia makes a point there about the notable absentees from this year's summit. Now, the US says that its resident diplomat is expected to be present when President Ramaphosa hands over presidency of the G20 to the US towards the end of this year's summit. But in a post on X, Vincent Magvenia, the spokesperson of the South African presidency, has said, I'm quoting him here, the president will not hand over to a charge d'affaires, unquote. Apparently, the position of US ambassador to Pretoria has remained vacant since January. What is happening?
I think we should not read too much about G20 and United States absence, in my opinion. The boycott or absence of US official from South Africa is not so much on G20 issues. There had been issues going on between South Africa and United States, and the US president, as you know, wants to put pressure, maximum pressure from all sides. And on some of the issues that South Africa has been targeted by United States is to say that people who are of European origin, white population is being targeted by South Africa in terms of its restructuring of the economy and in terms of many other areas, which was not supposed to be under the terms of democratization of South Africa, the agreement that was signed. But given the local pressure, the South African government is unable to do much because it's a multi-party state, and there are very strong oppositions to if the South African president is not doing the restructuring. So I think handing over the baton to United States to a junior official or not is a minor issue. It will go to United States. But I think the developed countries, including United States, will also get a message from these 4 successive summits that South is putting its agenda within the G20, and we should look forward to a successful conclusion of this summit.
Professor Dubey, before we move on to other themes, just wanted to check quickly, will America's absence, with President Trump's absence, also impact the final resolution outcome? I mean, how important is consensus? What happens when a leader is missing from this grouping of the G20?
I think if the leader is missing, Ambassador Bhatia will tell you what happens. But I fully understand if you are missing, you are missing. You don't object to that if you are not there. So the final outcome, of course, if the United States has any objection on anything that is being suggested, there are so many US allies who are there with whom it will be coordinating and putting its point of view within the summit's agenda.
Ambassador Bhatia, why don't you come in on this? Now, before that, let me just quote what the Trump spokesperson has said in the last several hours. She says, President Ramaphosa is, quote, running his mouth a little bit against the US, unquote, after President Ramaphosa said that, quote, bullying has no place in global affairs. What's going on? Will President Ramaphosa hand over the G20 presidency to an empty chair come the day after?
So, this is more than about the empty chair and handing over the gavel. What I've been hearing is that the battle is about what would be the nature of the outcome document of the summit. Now, as you know, for a thoroughly successful summit, you need to have a leader's declaration. And South African sources have disclosed that the Sherpas are working as we speak now on the draft Johannesburg summit declaration. On the other hand, it seems that there are suggestions from certain quarters that, let us settle down on a lesser outcome, and we would just call it chairman's summary, because chairman's summary is much less binding than the leader's declaration.
So what are these contentious issues, if I may ask you?
No, essentially leader's declaration would give to the document the impression that it has been cleared unanimously and by consensus, if not unanimously, at least by consensus, by the participants. But one of the key participants is not there.
Right.
So that key participant is essentially arguing that you cannot have the summit declaration if these reports are correct. So this is what I'm sure is what is being discussed in the conference rooms today. These are not just diplomatic battles. They really involve the political significance of the summit. This became a kind of, the most premier forum for international economic cooperation. And now, as I said, it is at a crossroad, and we will have to see how it moves from here to Miami next December.
Would you say that Trump's absence has to do with President Ramaphosa's foreign policies? For instance, is it payback for him moving the ICJ against Israel alleged genocide, his stance on Palestine, and Trump's allegations of a white genocide in South Africa?
Well, let us say very professionally that all these matters have impaired the US-South Africa relations. They are in a bad shape, and therefore now it is the responsibility of the other participants, other countries, other leaders to find a way out while ensuring the sanctity and health and indeed the longevity of G20, because really the welfare of the entire humanity in a way is dependent on it. So I'm counting on some of the very important leaders such as of UK, Germany, right, Indonesia, India, Brazil, putting their heads together to make sure that everybody's amour propre is protected and G20 moves forward.
Right. Fair enough. Ambassador Bhatia and Professor Dubey, do stay on. Let's get to some latest information from Johannesburg, especially with the Indian diaspora there. Let's take a listen.
Excited to meet Modi ji and represent our culture.
We are performing Bihu in front of Modi ji.
We really prepared so much to inform in front of him and show our culture in front of him.
We are very excited to present our community program to him and to meet him. Welcome Modi ji, welcome to South Africa.
It has been a dream of mine for a very, very, very long time. I am so excited that he's here. I'm a proud Gujarati. I'm a very proud Indian.
I'm very excited because Modi ji is coming and I've prepared a statue of unity for Modi ji. I made an Indian flag for Modi ji.
There are some excited members of the Indian diaspora, and Prime Minister in his departure statement had also highlighted how the diaspora in South Africa happens to be one of the largest Indian diaspora in the world. We return to our conversation on the significance of India at G20 in Johannesburg. Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey from School of International Studies, JNU, is with us. Professor Dubey, we're beginning this conversation on G20 just to understand in the multitudes of multilateral institutions and organizations, what place does G20 occupy? For example, some would look at G7 as a more powerful, more influential grouping. Where does G20 stand today from its inception? It's the 20th edition of the G20.
I think G20 is an important institution. As Ambassador Bhatia said, it is taken up very seriously because important countries of the world, the developed countries and some developing countries are also participating into this. But personally, I think that G20 is one of the many multilateral forums that exist. I won't suggest that it comes out with a resolution which has a very serious impact on the global economy or the countries that are participating as such. But it is an important forum where the North and some countries of the South come together, especially the emerging country, to put forth their point of view. And therefore, it is very important.
Right. Ambassador Bhatia, do you concur with what Professor Dubey had to say in terms of the significance of the grouping?
Yes.
In the meantime, Ambassador, if I can just pause you there, let's go across to Johannesburg for the latest on the Prime Minister's arrival there. He is in South Africa for the 20th G20 Summit to be taking place there for the first time on African soil. These are the latest visuals coming to you from that engagement of the Prime Minister upon his arrival in South Africa.
And those are the first visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's arrival in South Africa. Johannesburg is hosting the 20th G20 Summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi being received all at the Pretoria airport. Prime Minister Narendra Modi receiving a special welcome, guard of honor, a cultural welcome, part of a special welcome for Prime Minister. And those are visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's arrival in South Africa to participate in the G20 Summit. 22nd and 23rd of November will be the dates of the summit, and Prime Minister would have several other important bilateral and multilateral engagements on the sidelines as well.
Right, so if you're just joining us, you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India of the 20th G20 Summit to be hosted by South Africa this year. And the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, has landed in South Africa for taking part in the 20th G20 Summit. Remember, the theme this year is a diverse on issues such as sustainability, equality, and so on. So the focus is clearly on the Global South's expectations and priorities, and which will be reflected in the discussions taking place on the margins of the summit as well.
Ambassador Bhatia, as we look at those visuals of Prime Minister's arrival in South Africa, you were telling us about the real importance of this grouping of G20 and perhaps India's place in it.
Very quickly, I think a little look back will be useful here. Until 1999, there was no G20. In that year, they set up an annual meeting of the finance ministers of G20 countries. And they were doing their bit essentially to contribute and discuss financial stability issues. It was in 2008 that the US president took the initiative to elevate this meeting to the level of the highest political level, the head of state and head of the government. So that is the reason why G20, as we know today, the summit, traces back its origin to 2008. And in the first 2 years, 4 or 5 summits took place.
Right.
That is why it is now 20th. The by 2008, it was clear to the world powers, particularly from the north, that there is no way they can run the global economy without involving the developing countries. So they were brought in. And slowly G20 has developed its own personality. It has some of the most important economies in the world. And while there was a lot of handicap for the UN Security Council not taking enough action, this body seemed to be doing a lot right in the beginning. In 2008, it contributed greatly to the resolution of the global financial crisis of 2007 to 2009. So in that background, there is a lot of expectations and it is considered as important. And as you see, in every meeting, most heads of state or government come and attend it. So those of us who have followed it for the past 20 years are convinced that it is a very significant international forum. It takes decisions and then it is up to the member countries to go back and try to bring them into their own policies. So it is important But we have now to see, as I said, how important they themselves would treat this forum in Johannesburg.
And the next engagement of the Prime Minister, Ambassador Bharati, would be his interaction with the diaspora there. Now, among all of us on this broadcast, you have lived far longer in South Africa than all of us put
3
together.
years.
Indeed. So, tell us about your lived experience. Any fond memories of the diaspora there?
I feel very happy to be connected through you to the situation there and the excitement and happiness that Indians feel there. I think I have very many memories, but this is probably not the time to go into too much detail. I would like to say that the Indian diaspora is one of the oldest there, one of the largest there. They are mostly centered around the province of Durban, but they are spread out in Johannesburg, in Cape Town. Some of them are even in the capital city, Pretoria. They have been there for about 100 years, and then they have been the latest visitors as well. They contribute a great deal, and important thing to remember is the most famous Indian who went there, Mahatma Gandhi. He went there as a young barrister with one contract to go and do something for a few months and come back. But he stayed on there for many years, and this is where South Africa became the laboratory for the experiments with truth, with Satyagraha and all those weapons. They were developed there, and that is why there is the famous quote by Nelson Mandela, who said, India gave us a young lawyer and we returned to it the Mahatma. Right. And what is important is that later when Nelson Mandela, having been a militant himself, converted to peace and non-violence, he became known as the Gandhi of South Africa. So there is a very strong emotional bond between the two countries.
Right. Professor Dubey, your thoughts on the civilizational linkages that we are talking about between India and South Africa, African continent as a whole, what India did during its G20 presidency. Because remember, besides the G20, India's leadership, Prime Minister, would also be engaging on the IPSA platform, which is India, Brazil, South Africa. One may call it a grouping of multilateral democratic forces coming together. How do you see these linkages forming an important bedrock of the partnership in G20?
I think India and African countries have a very strong historical solidarity. And this solidarity comes from the anti-colonial struggles and also the experience that India provided to these countries in terms of diversity management, in terms of democratic governance, in terms of economic right. And therefore, India is seen by African countries as a very important partner in all these areas, including by South Africa. South Africa is especially important for India and for the world because it's just not the civilizational connect through the diaspora. There are very strong diplomatic actions and impactful action related to South Africa. When India was not even independent in 1946, we boycotted South Africa, with which we had 5% of our global trade with one country because it was practicing racial discrimination, including people of Indian origin over there. We also later on boycotted them politically and diplomatically. Our passports were marked not valid for South Africa and Israel. So there was a very strong diplomatic action by India on issues of discrimination of Indian diaspora over there. And we did not restore our diplomatic relation with South Africa till 1994 when it became democratic and the party system came to an end. And India had been, as Ambassador Bhatia pointed out, a very strong link from Gandhi onward in terms of what India contributed in terms of providing political organizations. First political formation in South Africa was Indian National Congress. So there were a lot of political and diplomatic connect as well. The Southern Connect through non-aligned movement was also very important. We were connected with African countries, including South Africa, through that. So India and South Africa and African country had civilizational connect as well as very strong diplomatic and political connect.
Right, we continue our conversation. We also playing those visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's arrival in South Africa. Prime Minister was received by Minister in the President's office. If you play those visuals again, Minister in the President's office, Kumbadzo Neshabeni at the Waterkloof Air Base in South Africa. Prime Minister Narendra Modi just a short while ago landed in South Africa. It's a 3-day visit, the focus on participating in the G20 Summit. Prime Minister Modi was received by the Minister in the President Office, Kumbadzo Neshabeni, at the Waterkloof Air Base in South Africa.
All right, let's take you across Johannesburg, where our colleague Amritpal Singh is joining us on this broadcast. Amrit, welcome to this broadcast. Good to see you report on the summit. Now, first up, is Johannesburg all geared up for the summit? What's the atmosphere like, the mood, the buzz around the summit?
Oh, yes, Johannesburg is all geared up. It's quite excited because this is the first time that the G20 Summit is taking place on the African soil. So it's not just Johannesburg or South Africa that's excited. It is the whole African continent because, leaders from various African countries have been invited by President Ramaphosa to take part as guests in this G20 Summit. So you can see that visible excitement on the roads in the city. The city is all decked up. The stadium called the FSN Stadium, which is about 35 odd kilometers away from the venue. Ramesh, I will have to go right now because I'm told that the Prime Minister is arriving here at the hotel. If I can ask my cameraman to quickly pan and show you how the Indian diaspora that has gathered here to receive the Prime Minister. There is visible excitement amongst them. They're going to present some kind of dances. Children are going to sing songs for the Prime Minister. So there are going to be performances at the hotel where the Prime Minister is staying. So the Prime Minister will be arriving here shortly in Johannesburg at his hotel very quickly because I have to go. I'll tell you he'll be received by the Indian diaspora. He'll have a short interaction with the Indian diaspora here, and then he goes for a bilateral meeting with the Australian Prime Minister, and later possibly a meeting with the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. He's also meeting CEOs of some companies. So that is what the engagements of the Prime Minister today are, and tomorrow he will make an intervention once the G20 Summit kicks off.
All right, Amrit, we'll let you go for now. We'll connect later again with more. Amritpal Singh.